It had been almost 6 months since Lena had last seen her best friend Maya. Life had gotten busy: university classes, a part-time job, and endless deadlines had slowly pulled them apart. But one sunny Saturday afternoon, nostalgia struck hard. Lena missed her best friend, the one who knew her secrets, who laughed until she cried with her, who felt more like a sister than anything else. Without even sending a text, she decided to surprise her. She grabbed a small box of Maya's favorite pastries, hopped on a bus, and made her way to the quiet suburban neighborhood where Maya's family lived. The streets felt oddly peaceful, lined with familiar trees she used to pass when they were in high school. Memories surfaced: the sleepovers, the whispered confessions, the nights spent watching movies until sunrise. Back then, Maya's house had always been a second home. It was filled with warmth, laughter, and the comforting scent of cinnamon tea that Maya's mom always made. But as Lena approached the front porch, something felt different. The house looked quieter than she remembered. The curtains were drawn, and there wasn't the usual sound of music playing from Maya's room. Still, Lena smiled to herself, excited for the surprise. She adjusted her hair, straightened her blouse, and rang the doorbell. A few seconds passed. Then she heard footsteps, heavy, slow, and definitely not Maya's. The door swung open, and Lena froze. Standing there, looking as shocked as she was Mr. Reed, Maya's father. But what truly made her heart skip was the fact that he was wearing only a towel, loosely wrapped around his waist, his chest still damp from the shower. His hair was wet, a few drops sliding down his neck and disappearing beneath the edge of the towel. "Oh, Lena," he stammered, eyes widening as his hand instinctively tightened the towel. "I wasn't expecting anyone." Lena's face turned crimson. "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought Maya was home," she blurted out, turning halfway toward the porch, unsure whether to laugh or run. He chuckled awkwardly, his voice deep but warm. No, don't be sorry. I just got out of the shower. Maya's out running errands. She should be back soon. Come in, please." Lena hesitated for a second, but eventually stepped inside. The living room looked almost the same, but emptier somehow. The family photos were still on the mantelpiece, but a few were missing, especially the ones that used to include Maya's mom. Lena remembered hearing that Maya's parents had separated last year, but she hadn't realized how much that had changed things. I'll go put on some clothes," Mr. Reed said quickly, giving her a small smile before disappearing down the hall. Lena exhaled, still embarrassed, and sank into the couch, clutching the pastry box. A few minutes later, he returned, dressed in jeans and a plain white shirt, looking much more composed. "Sorry about that," he said, pouring her a glass of water. "Didn't mean to traumatize you on a Saturday afternoon." Lena laughed nervously. "It's fine, really. I should have called before showing up." He smiled, and for a moment, the tension eased. They talked a bit about Maya's university program, Lena's studies, and how fast time had flown. His tone was gentle, almost fatherly, but there was something different in his eyes, a kind of loneliness she hadn't noticed before. When Maya finally arrived home half an hour later, the sound of her cheerful voice filled the air. Lena rushed to hug her, trying to shake off the strange awkwardness that lingered. But as she glanced back at Mr. Reed, she caught him watching her with a faint, unreadable smile. That night, as she replayed the scene in her mind, Lena laughed it off. It was just bad timing, she told herself. Nothing more than an awkward surprise visit. But deep down, something about that moment, those few seconds at the door, stuck with her. Longer than she cared to admit. It was the beginning of a story she never intended to live. The next morning, Lena couldn't stop thinking about the awkward scene from the day before. It kept replaying in her head: the towel, the surprise, and that strange moment when their eyes met. It had been nothing, she told herself. Just a funny, embarrassing accident. But something about it lingered, like a whisper she couldn't quite ignore. When Maya texted her that afternoon, "You should come over again. Dad said you looked shocked yesterday." Lena laughed and agreed. Maybe spending some time with her best friend would clear her mind. When she arrived, it was late afternoon. The sun cast warm, golden light through the trees, and for a moment, everything felt peaceful again. But as she knocked on the door and waited, she realized Maya's car wasn't in the driveway. Seconds later, the door opened and once again, it was Mr. Reed. This time, thankfully, fully dressed. "Hey, Lena," he greeted her with a friendly smile. "Maya just stepped out to pick something up. She'll be back soon. Come and make yourself at home." Lena hesitated for a moment but eventually stepped inside. The house was so quiet it felt almost heavy. Gone was the sound of laughter, the smell of cookies from Maya's mom's baking days. Instead, the air felt hollow, like something essential had gone missing. The faint tick of a clock filled the silence. Mr. Reed walked into the kitchen and returned with 2 mugs of coffee. "I made too much," he said with a shrug, handing her one. "Figured I'd share." Lena smiled politely, wrapping her hands around the warm mug. She didn't know what to say, so she looked around instead. On the mantel were the same family photos she'd noticed before, but this time she paid closer attention. In one, Maya was about 10, sitting on her father's shoulders, her mother laughing beside them. But in the newer pictures, it was just the 2 of them, no sign of Mrs. Reed anywhere. The absence was almost painful. "She took those when she left," Mr. Reed said quietly, as if reading her thoughts. "Didn't want reminders." Lena looked up, startled. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." He waved it off gently. "No, it's fine. I guess I'm still getting used to the quiet. The house doesn't feel the same anymore." He gave a soft, sad laugh. "Sometimes I still expect her to walk through that door yelling about forgetting her purse." Lena smiled faintly, unsure how to respond. There was something about his honesty, his vulnerability that caught her off guard. She wasn't used to adults speaking so openly. They sat in silence for a moment, sipping their coffee. Then he asked about her studies, her plans, her goals. She found herself talking more than she expected about her stress, her uncertainty, her dreams that felt too far away. He listened intently, nodding occasionally, offering thoughtful advice. For the first time in a while, Lena felt seen. It wasn't romantic. At least not yet, just a strange comfort in being understood. When Maya finally burst through the door, her energy filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Lena!" she shouted, hugging her tightly. "Sorry, I took forever, Dad. You didn't bore her, did you?" Mr. Reed smiled. "She was keeping me company." "You're lucky to have such a loyal friend." Maya laughed, rolling her eyes. "He says that to all my friends." But Lena noticed something. His eyes lingered a little longer on her, his smile softer, more personal. It made her heart skip unexpectedly. They spent the rest of the evening chatting, eating pizza, and catching up like old times. But every now and then, Lena would catch Mr. Reed's gaze, gentle, curious, unreadable. It made her feel both flattered and uneasy. That night, when she lay in bed, her mind refused to quiet down. She thought about his words, his tone, the way he looked at her. She tried to push it away. It was wrong even to think about. He was her best friend's dad, for heaven's sake. And yet, beneath the guilt, a quiet question lingered in her mind. Why did it feel so hard to forget that look? It was only the beginning of a tension that would soon change everything. The following weekend, Maya invited Lena to stay over for a few days. "It's been forever since we've had a sleepover," she said excitedly over the phone. "No excuses this time. I've got movies, snacks, everything." Lena agreed instantly. She missed the simplicity of their friendship before life got complicated. But as she packed her overnight bag, she couldn't shake the strange nervousness fluttering in her chest. She told herself it was just awkwardness from last time. She wasn't sure if Mr. Reed would even be home. When she arrived on Friday evening, Maya greeted her with her usual energy, pulling her into a hug and dragging her inside. "You're not leaving until Sunday," she declared. Mr. Reed was sitting on the couch, reading a newspaper. When he looked up, that familiar soft smile appeared. "Hey, Lena, nice to see you again," he said warmly. His tone was casual, but there was something else beneath it, something unspoken that made her stomach twist. Dinner that night was surprisingly comfortable. They laughed, shared stories, and even joked about the towel incident, turning the embarrassment into a running gag. It felt harmless, like they'd moved past it. But every now and then, Lena caught his eyes lingering on her just a little too long. And every time she looked away, she found herself wondering if she'd imagined it. Later that night, after Maya had gone to bed, Lena went downstairs to get some water. The kitchen light was still on. Mr. Reed was there, standing by the window, a half-empty glass of whiskey in his hand. He turned as she entered, smiling faintly. "Can't sleep?" Lena shook her head. "Not really. Just thirsty." She grabbed a glass from the counter, trying not to seem nervous. He leaned against the counter, his expression thoughtful. "You and Maya, your friendship's rare," he said quietly. "It's good to see something that genuine." Lena smiled. "Yeah, she's like family." He nodded slowly. "You remind me of her mother sometimes. Not just the way you care about people, but how you listen." The compliment caught her off guard. She felt her cheeks warm. "That's sweet of you to say." He smiled faintly, but there was a sadness in his eyes. "It's been hard since she left," he admitted. "Some days the silence in this house feels like it's pressing down on me." Lena hesitated, unsure what to say. But his tone was so sincere, so vulnerable, that she found herself responding softly. "That must be really difficult. I can't imagine losing someone you've built your life with." For a long moment, they just stood there, two lonely souls sharing an unexpected connection in the middle of the night. Outside, the rain began to fall, soft and rhythmic against the window. "You know," he said after a pause, his voice lower now, "you have a good heart. Lena, don't lose that." She looked up at him, her heart suddenly beating faster. "Thank you," she whispered. His gaze held hers for a second too long, intense, searching, as if he wanted to say something but didn't dare. The air felt thick, charged. Lena suddenly became aware of how close they were standing. Her breath caught in her throat. Then, as if realizing it too, he stepped back abruptly, clearing his throat. "You should get some rest," he said, his voice tense now. "It's late." "Yeah," she murmured, setting her glass down and quickly heading for the stairs. That night, Lena lay awake staring at the ceiling. Her heart wouldn't slow down. She replayed every word, every look. She knew it was wrong to feel this way, whatever this was, but something inside her couldn't stop wondering if he'd felt it too. By morning, both of them acted like nothing had happened. They chatted over breakfast, joked with Maya, and went about the day as if the night before had been just another ordinary moment. But beneath the smiles, a quiet truth began to grow, unseen but undeniable. It wasn't just awkwardness anymore. It was tension. Real, dangerous tension. And deep down, Lena knew that if it ever crossed the line, nothing between them or between her and Maya would ever be the same again. Saturday evening arrived with the quiet comfort of routine. The rain from the previous night had cleared, leaving the air cool and crisp. Maya had plans to meet some friends for dinner, a casual outing she'd invited Lena to join, but Lena declined, claiming a headache. The truth was more complicated. She didn't want to face the world outside that house. Not yet. Are you sure you'll be okay? Maya asked, slipping on her jacket. I won't be long. Lena nodded with a reassuring smile. Go seriously. I'll just rest and maybe watch something. When the front door closed behind Maya, silence filled the house again. The ticking of the living room clock seemed louder than ever. Lena curled up on the couch with a blanket, scrolling through her phone, trying not to think about the night before or the way Mr. Reed's voice had lingered in her mind, but just as she was about to play a movie, she heard footsteps. She turned to see him walking in, a half-open book in one hand and a glass of wine in the other. Couldn't sleep either? He asked, offering a small smile. She shook her head. Maya went out, so just keeping myself busy. He nodded and sat down across from her. She mentioned that. Sighed you weren't feeling great. Hope it's nothing serious. Just tired, Lena replied softly. He looked at her for a moment, then reached for the remote and turned on some quiet background music. Mind if I sit here a bit? It's too quiet in my room. She didn't object. She couldn't. There was something strangely comforting about his presence, like sitting near a warmth she didn't realize she missed. They talked at first about small things. Movies, books, how strange it felt when kids grow up and houses get emptier. I thought I'd get used to the silence after her mother left, he said, swirling his wine. But it never really goes away. Lena's heart ached a little at that. She understood loneliness, even if not in the same way. She wanted to comfort him, say something kind, something human. You're a good dad, she said softly. Maya loves you more than she ever admit. He chuckled. That means more than you think. Their eyes met. It should have stopped there, but neither of them looked away. The air grew heavy again, charged like before, but this time there was no easy escape. You know, he said quietly, you remind me of her in the best ways. Strong, but kind. Brave enough to care. Lena's breath caught. Her heart pounded in her chest. You shouldn't say things like that, she whispered. I know, he replied, voice barely audible. But it doesn't stop me from thinking them. The next few seconds blurred. One moment, they were just sitting there. The next, his hand brushed against hers. It was the lightest touch, hesitant, questioning. She didn't pull away. Maybe she should have. Maybe that was the moment to stop it all. But instead she froze, caught between guilt and something dangerously close to desire. He leaned in slowly, as if giving her a chance to say no. But she didn't. The kiss that followed was soft at first, almost unreal, then deeper, hungrier, filled with months of loneliness neither had admitted aloud. When it ended, they both sat in stunned silence. The weight of what they'd just done hit like a tidal wave. Oh my God. Lena whispered, pulling back. We can't do this. He looked at her with regret already clouding his face. You're right. I'm sorry. I don't know what came over me. Lena stood up, trembling. This was a mistake, she said, tears filling her eyes. Maya, she trusts me. I know, he said quietly, his voice breaking. I'm sorry, Lena. Without another word, she grabbed her bag and rushed out into the night, her heart racing, the cold air biting her skin. She didn't stop until she was blocks away, breathless and shaking. For the rest of the night, she sat awake in her small apartment, the weight of guilt crushing her chest. She couldn't erase the feel of his hand, his voice, or the way her heart had betrayed her by morning. She made a decision she would never tell Maya. It would stay buried, locked away forever. But secrets, no matter how deeply hidden, have a way of surfacing, and this one would destroy everything. Days turned into weeks, but Lena couldn't escape the memory of that night. It haunted her in quiet moments, the sound of the rain, the warmth of his touch, the look of regret in his eyes. She replayed it over and over, searching for ways to undo it. But there was no undoing something like that. She stopped answering Maya's calls. At first, she told herself it was temporary, that she just needed space, that she'd find the courage to face her again. But guilt grew heavier with each unanswered message, each missed call. Maya didn't understand. Did I do something wrong? One text read. Another. You've been weird since the weekend. What's going on? Lena typed 100 different replies and deleted every one of them. What could she possibly say? Hey, I kissed your dad while you were out with your friends? No explanation could make sense of what happened. No apology could fix it. She buried herself in work and school, trying to erase the memory. But then one evening, her phone buzzed with a message from Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed, we need to talk, please. I need to make sure you're okay. Her heart pounded. She shouldn't reply, she knew she shouldn't. But part of her needed closure, needed to hear that he felt the same weight she did. They agreed to meet at a quiet cafe across town, far from where anyone might see them. When she arrived, he was already there, looking tired and drawn, as if the guilt had aged him overnight. I'm sorry, he said immediately, his voice hoarse. I don't know what I was thinking. You didn't deserve to get pulled into my mess. Lena swallowed hard, her eyes stinging. It wasn't just you, she said quietly. I could have stopped it too. He shook his head. No, you're just a kid? I should have known better. I've failed everyone. Maya, you, myself. That broke her. Tears spilled down her cheeks, and before she could stop herself, she whispered, I haven't been able to sleep since that night. I keep seeing her face. I keep thinking she'll find out. He looked at her sadly. Then maybe it's best if we stay away from each other. For good. She nodded, even though it hurt to hear. It was the right thing to do. They both knew it, but fate, as cruel as it can be, had already set the next disaster in motion. A few days later, Lena's phone rang. It was Maya. Her voice was trembling, angry, confused. Lena. I need to ask you something, she said. Were you with my dad that night? Lena froze. Her blood ran cold. What do you mean? I found messages on his phone, Maya continued, voice breaking. He didn't delete them. You met him after that weekend, didn't you? Lena's heart stopped. The cafe, the messages. He hadn't erased them. Maya, she began, but her voice cracked. Don't lie to me. Maya shouted, sobbing now. How could you? You were my best friend. Lena couldn't breathe. It was a mistake, she whispered. It shouldn't have happened, I swear to you. But Maya didn't let her finish. The line went dead. For a long time, Lena just sat there, staring at her reflection in the dark phone screen. The friendship that had once been her anchor was gone, shattered in an instant. She tried to call back, text, apologize, explain, but Maya never responded. Days later, she learned from a mutual friend that Maya had moved out of her father's house and wasn't speaking to him either. The family was broken, torn apart by a secret that should never have existed. Lena stopped visiting the neighborhood altogether. Every street corner, every familiar place, felt like a wound that refused to heal. At night, she would stare at her ceiling and whisper to herself, if I had just walked away that day, none of this would have happened. But she didn't. And now, nothing, not time, not silence, not regret, could undo the fallout of that single, irreversible choice. Years passed, yet the memory of that night refused to fade. Time dulled the sharpness of the pain, but it never truly disappeared. It lingered like a scar beneath the surface. Invisible to everyone but Lena, she had graduated, moved to another city, and built a quiet, careful life for herself. On the outside, everything looked fine. She had a stable job, a small apartment, and a circle of new acquaintances who knew nothing about her past. But every so often, she'd catch a glimpse of a street or smell a familiar cologne. And the guilt would come rushing back, raw and heavy. There were nights when she would dream of Maya, her laughter, her warmth, the way they used to talk about everything. In those dreams, things were still the way they used to be. And then she'd wake up, remember what she'd done, and feel that old ache settle in again. She had tried to reach out over the years. Once, she sent a long email to Maya, an apology from the deepest part of her heart. She didn't try to justify anything, didn't beg for forgiveness. She just wrote the truth, that she was sorry, that she'd never stopped regretting it, that she hoped Maya was happy somewhere, even if it meant never hearing from her again. The email bounced back. The address no longer existed. Lena sat there staring at the delivery failed message for hours, her chest hollow. It was as if fate itself had sealed the silence between them forever. One evening, after work, she found herself walking aimlessly through the city, lost in thought. It had been almost 5 years since that day. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. And for a fleeting moment, the light reminded her of the afternoons she and Maya used to spend lying in her backyard, talking about their futures, about love, marriage, dreams. Funny, she thought bitterly, how love had been the thing to destroy them. She sat on a park bench and pulled out her phone, scrolling through old photos she still couldn't delete. There they were, smiling, carefree, wrapped in a friendship that had once felt unbreakable. Her throat tightened. That's when she heard a voice behind her. Familiar, soft, uncertain. Lena? Her heart froze. She turned slowly, and there was Maya. Older, more mature, her hair shorter now, her eyes deeper. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with years of silence. Maya was the first to break it. "It's been a long time," she said quietly. Lena nodded, unable to trust her voice. "Yeah, too long." They stood there for a moment, the city moving around them like a blur. Finally, Maya sighed. "I'm not here to yell. I've done enough of that for a lifetime." She looked away, her expression distant. I wanted to see if you were okay." Lena blinked, tears threatening to fall. "I'm not," she whispered. "Not really. I don't think I ever will be. What I did, I ruined everything. I hurt you in a way I can never fix." Maya looked at her for a long time, then said softly, "You're right. You did hurt me. You hurt both of us. But I've learned that carrying hate doesn't heal anything. I forgave you a long time ago, not for you. But for me, those words hit harder than any accusation. Forgiveness. The one thing Lena had never dared to hope for. I don't expect us to be friends again," Maya continued. "But I needed to tell you that I don't hate you anymore." Lena wiped her tears and nodded. "Thank you," she managed to say. "That means more than you know." They said goodbye quietly, and as Maya walked away, Lena watched her disappear into the fading light, grateful, broken, and free all at once. For the first time in years, Lena felt a strange peace settle over her. The silence had finally ended, not with anger, but with understanding. She knew she would carry the weight of that mistake for the rest of her life. But maybe, just maybe, she could start forgiving herself too. As she whispered into the evening air, her voice trembling but steady, she said, "If I could go back to that day, I'd walk away from that door and never look back." And for the first time, she truly meant it.